Well, hi, welcome back to BA 121 Legal Aspects of Small Business. Today we're going to talk about the employee or contractor dilemma, whether or not you're hiring an employee or an independent contractor, and what the difference is and who cares about it. Let's get started. Let's first talk about this disclaimer. I don't pretend to be um, giving you legal advice. I don't pretend to be your professional counsel. Please seek them out if you have any questions. As I said, we're going to talk about hiring an employee or an independent contractor. An employee is somebody who works for you. An independent contractor is somebody in business for themselves who you are simply contracting to do the job. And Okay, let's talk about who cares. There are some big guns that actually care as to whether or not you've classified the person working for you as an employee or as a independent contractor. Um, the first and foremost is the federal government. The IRS cares. One of the reasons they care is that you should be, if you're an employee, and the state government, taking out federal and state income taxes, Social Security, Medicare, unemployment. All of that comes out of an employee's paycheck, but it does not come out of an independent contractor's paycheck. So if you have misclassified them, you may be liable for a lot of that back taxes and back Social Security. You may be liable for all of that missing income that the federal and state government has been missing out on should you have been classified it in the right case. The Franchise Tax Board is the California's um, kind of they're the ones that are looking over and making sure that a proper amount of taxes are taken out. Economic development is the one that's going to help with unemployment cases, and they help you with a lot of things, but unemployment is the big one in this case. And then there's, of course, the workman's compensation. So the other things that if you've misclassified them, a misclassified employee or person, if they should be an employee, think they are an employee, and are being um, paid like a contractor, they don't get workman's comp, and if they get injured on the job, because they're classified an independent contractor is more like a small businessman. So they'd have to be paying for their own health insurance, and they'd have to be paying for their own retirement and other employee benefits that your employees might get, but that your um, independent contractors don't. There have been some pretty big cases against some pretty big companies. Microsoft got um, dinged pretty heavily in the last decade over employing a lot of independent contractors who they told and who should have been employees. We'll go over how you kind of know who an employee is and who an independent contractor is. But these are the entities that care, and there's some pretty, like I said, pretty big guns. Employee versus independent contractor all comes down to control. And we'll go a little bit deeper into what you control as an employer. But these are, again, some of the things that come into play for employees. Taxes, unemployment benefits, overtime pay. For example, an independent contractor wouldn't get overtime pay. They would simply get um, their hourly pay or whatever contract you've come up with. But there isn't time and a half, and that's not okay to the federal government. And I said before, there isn't workman's compensation, and also there's a disability, SSDIs, and those type of things that you should be paying into as an employer that you don't if you're just working with independent contractors. Okay, so how do you know if you have an independent contractor or not? There is a lot of trigger points that you would be able to know if you have an employee or if you have an independent contractor. But um, independent contractors, they could, they're doing the job for a specific price. And a lot of times that may be a profit to them. They may be able to get it done faster. So if you're paying $500 and it only costs them the equivalent of $400, they've just made $100. If you're paying them $500 and it takes them longer to do the job, to the equivalent of 600, they've lost $100. But that's their issue, not yours, right? So that as an independent contractor, that, like I said, they're a small business. Um, they invest in their own tools and supplies. You don't have to do that. Um, One of the big trigger points for an independent contractor is that they work for more than one firm. If they are only working for you, only doing this job for you, then you are likely an employer and not just hiring a independent contractor. If the services are offered to the general public, if, for example, certainly if this person has his or her own employees, they would be an independent contractor. They wouldn't be working for you. If they're bringing their own employees to your job site, even, that doesn't matter where their employees are working, but if they are then paying somebody else, that's certainly an independent contractor. Um, an independent contractor will set his or her own hours, come and go as they please, maybe not even work in your office. Maybe they're working from their own office or their home or wherever they do the business and do the work, but that they can come and go. And they also should operate as a different business name. If they're it's not absolutely necessary, but they should. And they should keep different business records. These are pieces and trigger points that you should be able to know if you have an independent contractor or an employee. I think the biggest one is um, works for um, more than one firm and sets his or her own hours. Those are some of the easiest ones to determine whether or not it's an employee. So the federal and the state government will look at that person and then really look. It's all about the control that you have. Do you have control over the behavior of them? Do you have control over where they work and when they work? And is there, who has the control of the finances? Is it an hourly pay? Is there overtime paid? Is there control over that profit and loss, and who has that control? These are some of the things that the regulators are going to look at. And they're going to look at whether or not you provide the person training and what is in general that relationship. Is there an office that they come to? Um, you're open at 9 a.m., they're there at 9 a.m. You've told them to be there at 9 a.m. And they only work for you. That relationship would say that you have an employee, not an independent contractor. An independent contractor is paid through a 1099 miscellaneous, and you can see there that the big red um, $15,250. It says non-employee compensation, box number 7. And you can see that no federal income tax is taken out, that no other state income tax is taken out. This is what an independent contractor would get, and they are then responsible for paying that federal income tax, and in this case, they're actually responsible for paying the income tax as a small business, which means that they are paying both sides. Businesses pay an income tax, and then the employee pays an income tax. And um, when you have a contract situation like this, a small business situation like this, that person then pays both sides of that equation, which is so it gets a little bit more expensive for them. An employee comes out with a W-2, and I am sure that you are all very familiar with this type of tax document. This is what you get from your employer at the end of January and or before. And you can see in this situation that there is federal income tax taken out, Social Security taken out, Medicare taken out, state income tax is taken out as well. So you can see that this is an employee. They have control over and have taken care of all of those tax situations. So what are some of the things that you can do when it comes time to determining what that person is? And we can suggest that you give them a questionnaire about the control, about their profit loss, about their tools, if there's a written agreement, um, and ask them if they have their own workman's comp coverage. If they have their own workman's compensation coverage, they are likely an independent contractor. That's probably an easy and out. Contractors should provide you with tools. Their own tools, should provide you with invoices, and they'll bring their own tools and transportation to the job site and sort of stuff. So that type of thing should tell you that it is a contractor and not an employee. And some of the other main things it can tell you is whether or not the independence, and that's in the whole relationship thing that we talked about earlier, the independence that they have coming and going as they want, where it is, how it's performed, etc., can give you a pretty good clue as to whether or not it is an independent contractor. Lastly, there are a lot of links again down at the bottom of this section of of the module that gives you some links, some YouTube videos and that sort of thing that will give you a little bit more information, more in-depth information about it. Again, it's not an exhaustive list. It's just an opportunity for you to dive a little bit deeper. Thanks, and we'll talk to you next time.